What's up, everyone? This is number 84 of the Tesla Beat podcast. It is a new year, and 2025 has been off to a banger start. That is to say the least. But we have some epic news for you. The Model Y Juniper was launched finally. The launch edition was launched, and some of you may have seen, obviously, the version that was released early on in China, but finally Tesla put it out in the US and I believe Europe as well. But what's going on, everyone? How's it going?
What an exciting morning. I was in the thick of rehearsals last night when my phone started blowing up, and I thought, well, either we've gone to war or the Model Y orders are open. And to my delight, it was the latter. So that's very good. I'd seen rumors that, it's going to look different when it comes to the US because no one wants this look. Guys, first of all, it is a good looking car. Second of all, get used to it. Once you're inside, all cars look the same on the outside, so who cares? So yeah, it's exciting.
And the other exciting piece is that deliveries in both Germany and the United States are beginning in March, so not even into Q2 for the lucky few who get on the earliest of the deliveries. And so it's like basically going to start delivering in China at the same time that it's delivering here in the United States, at the same time that it's delivering there close to the factory in Germany. So pretty much a simultaneous global rollout of the Model Y refresh, which is pretty awesome.
On a car of that volume, I feel like you have to. This is something I know a lot of us have been talking about for a while, but some people were still saying, no, it'll be 3 months, 6 months, a year later in other markets. No, not on the Model Y. You can't, which is why refreshing the Model 3 first to get improve your speed of changeover was so critical.
Yeah, this is one of those things that I was really hoping that would be a global rollout because the vehicle is so popular worldwide. It just made sense to not belabor the point for those, and of course, you don't want to end up with the Osborne effect. So I think it's brilliant. I think, man, Tesla is doing big things this year over any of their past rollouts, and this is just evidence to that fact. Like you were saying about the Model 3 rollout was like hella months later for America, and everybody just had to watch the videos and be online like, oh. But now, you know what I mean? Like everybody's getting it in March, and that's crazy to think. Like, I mean, I don't understand like a supply chain like that, but to know that they are ready globally to issue these at all of their factories starting in March is freaking crazy.
Yeah, I think it was their VP of supply chain made a comment on X about how rolling out redoing the production line for 4 factories globally is insane. So shout out to the team if you're on supply operations or really just on the floor making the new production line. Thank you for all your work. But yeah, I think I'm excited that they're doing the global launch. I think that's the way to go, especially given this is the best-selling car in the world. And I would say this is not just the Model 3, but given the fact that the car is being made in China, Fremont, Austin, and Europe, like I think it makes sense to do the global launch versus the 3 is really only made in Shanghai and obviously the US. So it makes sense to just do it across the board. So I think, again, I'm not sure, they'll probably share more on the earnings call, but I would assume Q1 is going to be a little bit light given the shutdown, but I think they're going to be ramping up big time. So, but with that said, let's get into it, and then we can talk about more of these things because we can do that. But yeah, shout out to Grok and Joe for continuing to put together this awesome deck. If you're watching the stock on a weekly or daily basis, it's up to 415 today. It was previously 390, so there's a bit of a pop maybe post inauguration, but it is up about 10% year to date. All right, so I'm going to show you guys, I'm going to play the official Tesla video of the Model Y. It's about a minute clip, but I thought that would be very helpful for those that maybe missed this.
Not even worried
So
about copyright. Very bold of you.
yeah. Well, it'll be not even worried about copyright, but I know there will be some rev share, but all good. Proud to support the amazing music. So my initial thoughts when I saw that video, I think let's go into we'll get a little bit into the specs, but I would love to know your thoughts on when you saw it. My thoughts, straight up, honestly, were Cybercab. You see the back light bar, you see the front light bar. It's all pretty much like feels like one piece. I think that obviously the front is a little bit scattered, but it feels like a Cybercab with 4 doors essentially, along with a steering wheel. So that's the impression that I kind of get. And to be honest, I think depending on if you saw some of those raw photos that came out when China launched or made the announcement, it definitely, maybe I wasn't necessarily the biggest fan of the look, but definitely the thing about this is really growing on me, especially as I kind of think about the Cybercab. So it's one of those things that for me, I thought of the Cybercab first, especially when you look at the light bar. And then more importantly, we all saw what the original Model 3 was and how the updated Model 3 looks and feels. In my opinion, it is just night and day from the 2018, 2019. And you're really starting to see, Tesla's engineering and their iterations continue to get better. And so I think that this is a completely different build. It is going to be, just the build quality, the structure of it. It's just going to feel more solid. And that's at least what I felt in the Model 3. So I'm really looking forward to this. It has a great look. And then also too, I'm excited for, even the rear seats folding, the back TV as well, or the back screen for your audience back there. So I think they knocked it out of the park. And I think with the global rollout, it's going to be great. But what did you guys think?
I would say that with the Cybertruck, when it was first unveiled, I felt sick to my stomach. The design was that off-putting to me. It took me a week or two to warm up to it, and probably 6 months before I couldn't live without it. It's so beautiful. I must share the joy of it. With the Model Y, it was a lot more muted. I thought, yeah, that looks fine. But now the more I see it, the more I love it. In terms of the interior and the performance specs, you're absolutely right. Anyone who drove a legacy Model 3 compared to a new Model 3, I guess legacy is the wrong word, an OG Model 3 compared to the refreshed Highland Model 3, it is a different car. It is a different experience. It is refined. It is elegant. You can see why it's winning awards all over the world. And this offers the same thing. We don't have to guess what it's going to be. We know it's going to be exactly that, but in a Model Y. And little things like the seats folding, when the rear seats power fold, the front seat inches up so that it actually gets all the way down without the headrest stopping when it hits your back. That's just little clever things that you need to do that I never would have thought of. And they're like, well, we have all the controls, we have all the data, we know where the seat is, just add it. It costs us nothing. And it isn't nothing, but it's the marginal cost is zero, and the development cost is real close to zero. And they've done a lot of little things like that. If you look at the side mirror, you'll see that the housing has a ridge on it, a little line. Why would they add that? Because it looks cool? Yes, maybe, but it might also be to direct airflow, to control the turbulence behind the mirror, to improve the coefficient of drag. Well, that would only get you, what, 1/100%, 1,000%? Yeah, but it's free. We'll take it. Every little bit like that helps. So I think we're just scratching the surface of what this update is, and every part of it looks very exciting.
I'm still kind of withholding judgment on the front end of the car without seeing it in person. I didn't feel like I loved it or hated it in pictures, but I think it could end up looking really, really good in pictures. The one thing that, as far as the outside aesthetics, that I really love after seeing Kyle Connor's out of spec video yesterday on this is that rear reflective light bar is really cool. And it's hard when you just see it in the picture without the video. Like, what is the deal with that? Like, it just doesn't really come through what it is that you're looking at. But the way that they've done that, having the LED lights tucked up inside of the light bar and then just shining down on this reflective Tesla sign back out at the people behind is actually really interesting. And I think the aesthetic is very, very unique. I think this will be a design statement piece that will actually become iconic, and you'll see this get copied a lot moving forward by other automakers. And so I thought that was really cool. The other comments that I would make is that we've already seen in China that within the first 10 days, they're anticipate, or based on reservation numbers, it looks like they've already received 100,000 orders in the first 10 days just in China for the new Model Y, which is essentially 10% of Shanghai's annual capacity sold in 10 days. So if we see that kind of response out of Germany and out of the United States, Tesla could essentially sell out their entire annual capacity before the end of Q1. So that in and of itself is pretty crazy. It just goes to show how in demand this vehicle is. But then the last detail that I've been thinking about that I think is pretty significant is that we didn't see any of the components that we were kind of hoping to see get incorporated into the refresh Model Y. So, it doesn't have the steer-by-wire. It doesn't have updated drivetrain components that we're expecting to see in the Cybercab. And that leaves me speculating that one of these new models that's supposed to come out in the first half of 2025 is going to have to be that halfway in between manufacturing base to ramp up all of the suppliers, because you don't want to necessarily, or at least I don't think that Tesla is going to want to have to ramp up all of those components for the Cybercab just as the Cybercab is ramping. I think they're going to want to use as many of those components, like the steer-by-wire components, as they can in something else first to begin getting those manufacturing volumes up, because we're talking about new components that need to be sold in multi-million units per year. Like a lot of those steer-by-wire components, you need multiple of them per car. And if you want to sell 2 million cars in a year, well, then you need 4 or 6 million of these things, depending on if there's 2 or 3 of them per vehicle. And so anyways, all of those supply chain logistics concerns lead me to believe that we're going to see something here in the not too distant future that's going to have to use these, because they didn't put them in the Model Y and they do need to ramp those components.
You're on mute, Joe.
Got it.
Yes, Daddy.
I will say that the way we see it and the way Tesla sees it is way different. We, as fans of the brand and as consumers of the product, we look at it from a different perspective. In every single time, 10 out of 10 times, like besides Brian, we usually get it wrong, and it ends up being something that nobody saw coming. And I think that's what's going to happen in this first quarter. I think that's what's going to continue to roll out throughout the course of the year. I think like these new vehicles that are slated to come, like I just don't think we really have any idea. And I think a lot of those things, like what Hans is mentioning, might see their way into those vehicles, because those vehicles have to sell in a volume that nobody has seen before out of Tesla. And I think that's saying a lot. And to think that Tesla is not prepared for that is going to be a fool's errand for legacy media, and how their lack of reporting. Bradford had posted something about how there really aren't seeing any posts really from legacy media about the Model Y refresh. But as we know, just like the initial launch of the Model Y, that whole that whole show, people, it was lackadaisical. People didn't really appreciate it. It was like, oh, that's nothing but a glorified Model 3. Nobody's going to care. And Elon said this is going to be the best selling vehicle in the world, and nobody listened. And he was right, as he usually is, which is something that people really also need to take note of, is how often he's right versus how often he's wrong. And yeah, I like everything about it. I will say that there's a really cool light show that Blue Skies put up from China, and the light show looks incredible, man, on this vehicle. And I think that that front light bar is really cool. I think that what you're seeing on the Model Y is probably what's going to have to happen unless they move the headlights for the Cybercab. You cannot, regulations do not allow you to have like a continuous bar that incorporates the headlights as well as the daytime running light, like all the way across the vehicle. So it has to be broken up how it is on the Model Y. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens, but holy cow, man, I like everything about it. And I think that reflective, I mean, as we're going to see in the stats, they gave us all the, Tesla was graciously gave us all the information. This is a first of its kind, you know, I mean, for that ambient lighting on the rear end, like nobody's done anything like that before. And like Hans says, I believe like you're going to see a lot of people try and copy all these things.
Yeah.
Look at how many light bars you see across vehicles now. I mean, you saw that in the announcement of the freaking Cybertruck, and then Rivian rolls out the R1T, and now everybody's got light bars that go across the vehicles.
So I would say that the reason there's no legacy coverage of the Model Y refresh is because it's too soon. These guys, when a new car comes out, they do cover it, but they never cover it within hours or a day of its release, unless they were invited by the PR department to know that it was about to happen and be prepared for it. Tesla's PR game is, I would say weak, but it's non-existent. They have reached out to people in the European market because they have a PR department there. They have reached out to people in China because they have a PR department there. But getting, you can't just expect it to magically happen. That's crazy talk. When it comes to the 48 volt, it is crazy. When it comes to the 48 volt, that was something I wasn't expecting because while Hans is right that you want parts commonality, what they want is parts commonality with the Model 3. I'm sure they wanted the Model 3 to go 48 volt, but like we were saying about getting this concert, this orchestra of suppliers around the world on 3 continents at least, making all these parts, validating them, getting them tested. It's a lot of moving pieces to try and make work. I think they wanted to do it on the Model S and X. I think the yoke was there because they thought it was going to be steer-by-wire, 48 volt, and they just couldn't get the supply chain to catch up in time. They had to defer it. So there's tricks to getting it all done, and with something this high of volume, you got to go to war with the army you have, not the army you want. I didn't realize until yesterday that nobody else has used this kind of rear tail lighting. I didn't know that no one else had done the brake sconces to light up the whole back of the car. And I think it's great. And because there are also lights on the corners, making it redundant, that it doesn't have the same kind of regulations as a primary system. It's a secondary system. So it's just the genius of the people they have working there. They have an incredible talent at recruiting the best and brightest. And if you don't think it shows, you're not paying attention.
Yeah. Oh man. Joe might but there was a post today from someone from San Francisco, and they said essentially that Waymo is like 100 times better than Tesla, and then a Tesla autopilot engineer wait to be shocked or something like that. And I think Sawyer reposted. It's just like, oh man, like people just don't know the type of people that are working at this company. I mean, there's a lot that people don't realize. Like you saw it when the Starship launched, like people were like, what's happening in the sky? And it's like, man, it's just wild what people don't know what's happening around them. Small rock. Yeah. Well, I think that's in my opinion, I would rather be shooting for a company or rooting for a company. I mean, this has always been the case, that is constantly overlooked, so that there's that big surprise at the end, because that's what Tesla has been. And we'll show a video later about how one of the big, I guess, banks and one of their key leaders gave some shout outs to Elon after, literally suing the company and other things. So it's interesting how everything comes around. But let's just hit on the specs real quick. Again, this is not a super big deep dive. These are more like high level call outs, but things that are new on the outside: redesigned exterior with improved aerodynamics to unlock better range. I think it's about 3% more range is what I'm hearing. 2.8 to be exact. It has a whole different redesigned exterior to improve the range, performance, and longevity. They have updated wheels, tires, brakes, retuned suspension for a smoother ride. Again, you look at the old 3 versus the new 3, night and day. But if we talk about what's new on the inside, we got ambient lighting, as we've been talking about, refined materials and ventilated first row seats, power folding second row seats, the touchscreen in the back, a quiet cabin. That's probably always been one of those things, because when you owned a gas car and you switched to Tesla where it literally has no sound, I can't tell you, when I've gone to the service center, it felt like half of the actual appointments were literally just people that had made that transition and did not realize that, you're going to hear things because you didn't hear it before because your engine was going. You're driving an internal combustion engine that can explode. It's the nature of the beast. So the quiet cabin, that again goes to the build quality. Invisible speakers for a minimalist aesthetic with maximum audio performance. Sorry, Brian, were you gonna say something?
Nope.
Okay. But what's crazy is, we all know, is Elon, Tesla, they love their music, and so they make sure that your car sounds like it has upgraded audio all the time. The Cybertruck is on a completely another level. And then the last thing is improved connectivity, offers more range for phone key, clearer calls, and faster cellular and Wi-Fi connectivity. So those were the key things. But as far as the panel, was there anything specifically that you are really excited about on the new redesigned Model Y?
I wish to encourage people to realize that when it's only 2.8% more range. No. It's 2.8% more stated range. And what we saw with the Model 3 refresh is that the stated range is a whole lot more than it was in the past, or the actual real world range. When people did real world comparisons between the old Model 3 and the new Model 3, they found it had vastly more range. So I think what we're going to see is 2.8% on paper, but on a half day, 1 day road trip, you're going to skip an entire charging stop because it's closer to real. And then when you were discussing what's new on the inside, it's new. It's just new. The whole inside is new. The seats, the windows, the infotainment's bigger and better. The everything, the dash, the material, everything. It's all new. So it will feel like a different car.
Yeah, look at those wheels on that photo. The under the wheel cover, that's a way different wheel than anything they've released before. That's pretty dope. Knocking it out of the park continuously. Crazy.
Definitely. What, Joe and Hans, what is your favorite thing about the new Model Y that you're excited about?
I'd have to say, and this is a really weird take, but I like the fact that the license plate is moved to the bottom on the plastic, because they don't have to redesign any more rear deck lids. I mean, the boot for any region. Like now, it's just, they're just designing one vehicle, and then they can just slap the plastic thing on for any region. And I think that's freaking brilliant. You're talking like a true global vehicle, overall. And it's a really weird thing, but I that's one of my favorite things about it. It's like that rear is pretty dope.
Hans, how about you, man? You're on mute.
Yeah, I really enjoy just knowing that it's an overall better vehicle, front to back, and the driving dynamics. I think just the level of refinement overall. That there's, we know that Tesla, they continuously try to improve the quality of the car as they're producing it. So they're not, usually waiting for a long time, but there are some changes that it's just hard to make. And so like this is anything that they could do that worked with their existing supply base and their existing manufacturing lines, they did. And so there's just like the level of step up of the quality of the vehicle overall is the thing that I would be most excited about if I were able to purchase a new one. Like this is definitely a much, much, much better car.
Yeah.
Brian, if you don't mention suspension, I'm going to be upset.
It is. That is my number one thing is suspension. The Model Y is a bouncy boy. I don't, I've got the 19-inch wheels to give me maximum comfort and maximum range. But the Model 3, when I had a chance to drive it, I got my first drive of it was at a little test drive event with the Bellevue, in Bellevue with the Washington Owners Club. And I couldn't believe it. Speed bumps felt smoother in the 3 than they did in the Y. And I was like, this is refined. And then I had a chance to drive it on the Autobahn when we were out there in Austria, John. And I had a chance to take it autocross driving last summer. It is so refined. It is comfortable. And that's the one real complaint I have with the Model Y is the suspension is, rough.
Yeah, that's my wife's complaint too. Like our Model Y, me and Brian both have Model Ys. The only thing is, like he says, it's a bouncy boy for sure.
Joe, to you, band.
Look, no shade. First off, but man, this is just wild that, like, if this would have been any other company, like, well, if it would have been Tesla, let's just be honest, this would have been like everywhere and everybody would have been like, I knew it. See, this is why you shouldn't have one. But nobody's up in arms about GM just selling your information constantly. Now they're banned from doing so for 5 years. That's kind of insane. That's insane.
Why is it just 5 years though? Like, it's okay that they do it. They just have to wait. What is this?
Data in the oil, man. They gotta cut the tap. So it's like, nah, you don't get no more until later.
In my opinion, like literally what's happening is that I'm not going to call it all legacy because as of right now, it's only GM. So if you're another legacy auto company, you're selling people's data, stop. But long story short, they're literally becoming a phone provider that then takes your information and is selling it. So that probably means, I mean, again, it's probably they're just looking for other ways to make money. But the customer base, when you're buying a car, should not be they shouldn't be able to sell your information for money, right? It's like if they're trying to, like, we know that there's apps, third-party apps that come on and they'll use that data and all this other stuff, but they're not selling it. They're giving access for these third-party apps, right? It's not, it's two different things. So it's just a little bit, I scratch my head a little bit thinking that this is like GM's literally becoming another, AT&T, Verizon or something like that, where it's like they have your information and you're the product, but it's like I'm buying a car. It's just two different things. So, all right. So Say is open. Do we know what, I don't have off the top of my head.
Top question. Yeah, I don't
know. What time is the earnings call? Do we know? Is it Wednesday or Tuesday?
It is the 29th, just after market closes, I think.
Okay, so Wednesday, so Wednesday the 29th, probably around, what is it, 2:30 Central, or sorry, 4:30 Central is typically maybe 4 o'clock Central. But 1 p.m. PST, they'll be releasing after market closes, Brian said. They'll be releasing all of that. But if you have any questions, make sure you submit them, and maybe they can be asked. Question, do you think Elon will be on this earnings call?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, because he said years ago that he wouldn't unless it was absolutely critical, and then he hasn't missed one.
Technically, he missed one.
I think he might have missed. He might have missed one, but
yeah. Joe, back to you.
This is for Brian, man. Numbers don't lie. I think this is pretty awesome when you made this post. It's a very strong start of the year, despite the Juniper changeover. I wanted to know what you were seeing. I know we got the insured numbers from China, but what do you think this lays out for the growth throughout the year?
so I had seen an article that said, breaking news, Tesla Shanghai is going to be closed for 3 weeks to change over to the Model Y Juniper over Chinese New Year. And I thought, what are you talking about? They started the changeover a month and a half ago. We've already seen them shipping units out of there. That doesn't make any sense. Now, we know they've got the equivalent of 2 or 3 lines for Model Y. Model Y is famously not built in a traditional line. I've tried to have their engineers explain it to me, and they won't. They call it a circle, and I've tried 100 analogies to try and get them to tell me what on earth that means. But at any rate, they are still producing, they have been producing legacy original Model Ys alongside the refresh Model Ys. And all they're doing is shifting the percentage over until it's done, basically. So the fact that we're still seeing such strong sales before the first Model Y refreshes are in customer hands means that there is still a mad scramble to get these cars, even though they know the new thing is coming in a matter of, weeks at most, at least, and a month or two, maybe, depending on when they actually open the floodgates. So the fact that we're seeing such strong sales is very encouraging. I would have expected it to be quite a bit weaker. Those are great numbers regardless of brand. This is not just the best-selling model in China. It's the most expensive of all the best sellers. If you take the list of the top 10, 20 vehicles selling in China, not only are the Model 3 and Y on it, but they are 2 of the only 3 cars on the list that are over $21,000, with the third one being the Xiaomi. They are dominating despite the price. Demand remains strong to all of you. Well, there's competition. Yeah. And people ain't buying it the same way they're buying a Tesla. And if we do see an intermediate vehicle between the new Model Y and the release of Cybercab, something that's built on the existing 3 and Y lines, like that had been mentioned at the last 2 earnings calls, we may see new market expansion in other segments of the market, in other modestly different form factors. If they made a little bit smaller hatchback or a 2-door or something like that, we could see even greater expansion. And all these pre-sales have 2 effects. Hans, I think it was Hans that had mentioned earlier, 100,000 pre-orders. Well, who cares? If that's too many, you don't even need that many. No, you do, because what it means is I don't have to send half full trucks to delivery centers. Every truck will be full. It means my logistics is a lot easier to manage with large numbers than small numbers. It means greater pricing efficiency, greater cost efficiency from the time it leaves the door, and really even before it leaves the door. We can see 3 months out what our staffing levels need to be, what our parts levels need to be. And we know that as fast as we can build them, they're going to go. Let's get back into that gear. That's where the margins are. So entirely, there's no downside to it.
So I think it's one thing that's been really interesting over time has been just how people who've really hated Tesla and Elon for years, if not decades at this point now, but a lot of them are changing their tune. You're seeing it. I don't know if it's because of the election or whatever it is, or if it's just, the results from Elon's companies continue to show itself. But JP Morgan Chase, I'll show the clip in a second. The JP Morgan Chase's CEO thinks that Elon Musk is the modern day Einstein. And this is what he said. I'll just show this clip, and then I'll just talk a little bit about, because they filed a lawsuit against Tesla in 2021, alleging that the company breached 2014 stock warrant deal after the bank lowered the exercise price. So,
I mean, Tesla, Neuralink. I mean, the guy is our Einstein, and so and I like to be helpful to him and his company as much as we can. I think it is completely rational for someone to look at our government and say it's been ineffective. We deserve good government. And I don't think anyone thinks sending another $1 trillion to Washington, D.C. will lend to good government. So government needs to be more accountable. It needs to be more efficient. It should be outcomes-based. I mean, I'd say department by department. So I wish them the best. It's going to be complicated. The federal government's complicated. You read about all the people in it. And so, if we could be helpful to them, and I'd love to be helpful to them.
I'm just impressed that he doesn't have pink eye yet from all the ass he's kissing.
Oh, I was thinking that. I swear to God, I was thinking that.
Oh, man.
The amount of people that are coming to freaking kiss the ring and realize, like, just what we've all come to know is staggering, man. You can just imagine all the scrambles that happened after the election results and after inauguration and after, all these things were announced. Like, holy cow, I could all the boardroom, all the CEOs scrambling to try and figure, okay, who do we call? How can we? It's insane, man. Jamie Dimon is like one of those people that is unapologetic. If anybody knows the history of JP Morgan, like they usually have the weight to throw around, and they're not apologists to anybody, and they're not beholden to anybody for anything. So for Jamie Dimon to come out and say those things it just goes to show you that he realizes, where he needs to be in his stance on things. So that's pretty awesome.
There was an interesting clip that Chamath Palihapitiya had yesterday in his Tucker Carlson conversation about Elon, kind of early on in their overall conversation, that I think is relevant here, and in probably we'll see more of this moving forward. And he was saying that, a lot of over the past, he's been close to Elon for a long time, and he looked up to Elon, but he would always look at Elon's decisions through the lens of, oh, that was a good business decision, because Elon was, over the long run, able to make those things work out for his business. And so he was discounting the fact that Elon was making most of those decisions. And this is what he came to finally realize after some soul searching in his own life, that, he made a lot of his decisions based on what he thought would earn the most money. And so there's always this calculus of, like, how are other people going to perceive this thing? How do I, win in basically just financially, because the number is the metric that matters. And how large is, your bank account? How large are your holdings? All that stuff. And he's like, what I realized is that Elon didn't really care about any of those things. He was really honestly trying to do the things that he thought were going to be best for his missions, for the principles that he cared about, and for the people that he cared about. And that was something that was easy to gloss over, and it was easy to miss for a lot of people who don't necessarily think that way. And I think this is, like, the reason that Elon is getting involved in this whole Department of Government Efficiency initiative to begin with, is that he really believes in the principles that the Department of Government Efficiency represents. And if there's pushback against those things from the public or from, various political factions, he's like, I know that that's going to happen, and I don't really care. Like, I'm not making it because I'm not making this decision because I'm trying to make everyone happy, or I'm trying to have the largest bank account in the world. Like, I'm doing these things because I believe in these things. And I think that as people who are in business, who a lot of times don't either have the luxury or just haven't come up with the backbone and the principles to make those types of decisions, as they recognize that dynamic in Elon, that it does earn the respect of a lot of people, unless he just happens to be making waves in something that they care deeply about, and they are, opposed to him on that specific issue. But this is one of the reasons why a lot of people do Like once he then is championing a cause that they do care about, then they come around, they realize, wow, this was something that I wanted to do, but I never was able to make it make sense for me because I knew that it would come at a cost, and he was willing to pay the cost. And that's actually something that I appreciate now.
Brian, did you want to say something or? Okay.
No, this is outside of my area of expertise a bit, but I would just say that all the business leaders know which side their bread is buttered on. And if we were seeing anything other than what we're seeing, I think that would be the news story.
Yeah, I would agree with, again, we don't have to go too much into this because of just the topic, but I would say that I really agree with you. Again, if we just keep this within the companies and what potentially could happen with government spending is like Elon will make the sacrifices, knows that it's going to hurt, even if he knows it's going to cause him mega pain, even if he knows there's going to be a short sacrifice for a better good. And you see that whether it was the Model 3 production hell that he went through, whether it was the 6 to 9 months of the Twitter acquisition, like you see it, same thing with those insane surges in the Walter Isaacson biography, where he goes into those insane surges. And he kind of has, it's like a cyclical thing, right? He just goes into those insane surges. And I think I would agree with that observation that a lot of times, he'll potentially sometimes make the business decision that no one else is able to see, but it's the right move, even when it comes at potentially a big cost in the short term.
I love just the original example of the fact that he even started Tesla and SpaceX to begin with. Like if you listen to his commentary from when he started those companies, like these companies are almost assuredly going to fail. Like this is probably more than likely, by all accounts, going to bankrupt me. But it's such an important thing that needs to be done that I'm just going to do it anyways. And whatever progress we make will serve the mission, and that'll be worth it. And if it comes at personal cost, oh well, like why am I here? It's because I care about these things. So yeah, I think that has played out, in a number of other arenas. And, Elon's definitely not a perfect person. So it's not like every time he goes all in on something that he's willing to sacrifice for, that it's necessarily the best thing that he could do. But it is just that willingness to embrace the risk and the uncertainty and know that you're likely going to fail, but you're going to do it anyways, is something that a lot of people appreciate.
To be clear, Elon did not want to start SpaceX. He wanted to buy a rocket to do a mission, and the Russians laughed him out of the room. And on the flight back, hey, Elon, what are you going to do? Start your own company? Shh, I'm working on numbers. I'm crunching some stuff. And it's insane. And like you said, it is insane. First of all, impossible. Stop now, because it's never going to work. And every step of SpaceX has been that. So I love to give people my elevator pitch for Starlink. Hear me out. I only need a few billion, but hear me out. This is going to be great. All we need to do is launch more rockets that have ever been launched, to deploy more satellites than have ever been deployed, so we can give internet away for $70. You in? No, absolutely not. That's insane. Who would buy that? But they made it work. And if any part of it had failed, the whole thing would fail.
And two additional stories that I'll kind of chime in on. One, I remember when I think he showed his friend, or he told his friends, hey, I'm starting a rocket company. And one of his friends literally helped him watch like videos of rockets exploding.
Wasn't it Steve Jurvetson?
Most likely.
Yeah, somebody who came to, or either that or Antonio Gracias. Like it was one of his board members from Tesla that ended up, like, they came around eventually, but they were trying to protect it, because the running joke in aerospace is, how do you make a small fortune in aerospace? Well, you start with a big one, because it's going to bankrupt you.
Yeah, it's wild. And then the second story I'll leave you with is, I remember when he told his mom, he's like, I think I'm going to start a car company and a rocket company. And she's like, oh, just choose one. And of course, what does he do? He goes and does both. And again, it's not like he's going to start a new software company. He's literally going to start the most capital intensive industries. And he starts it, and look at where we are now. And the crazy thing, as far as I know, SpaceX, I think they've come out a little bit and said this, but they're profitable. It's just, that's mind blowing. So, all right. So Joe, back to you. Tesla goes up.
Yes. Anybody heard about this? Anybody? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. So Tesla increased their prices in Canada, and I mean, like, by a lot. Like, these aren't like small numbers. It's not like 1,500 here, and you know, I mean, these are like huge numbers. So it was, I think, and Brian, you can help me with this. I think that they are prepping for these new vehicles and a pricing structure that's got to tailor down right across the fleet, I would think.
So I don't know what is going on with it. I'm concerned that it might be in anticipation of tariffs, and that so that if tariffs arrive, that they can say, oh, well, you know what, we're going to eat that whole tariff and not have to deal with it. But I don't see a logical reason for it happening. And if anyone has that information, I would love to hear it as well.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. I mean, thousands. Like, overnight, they just raised the price like crazy, man. If you were holding out, don't hold out.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything on that. All right, so this is kind of shocking. I'm surprised that Edmunds didn't put out a top 25 lemons of the year and put Tesla at the top. Speaking of lemon trees from Brian's backyard. But the reality is that Tesla, it was so congratulations to the Tesla team for such an amazing car. So the Model 3 got the top rated electric vehicle from Edmunds for 2025. But like I said, if you only need a 5-seater, you need a commuter car, you need something that's going to last. Teslas are just amazing, especially the new Model 3. So definitely something to consider. And also too, who knows about this federal tax credit that may be going away. So, that's my only thing is if you're going to need something in the next 6 months, there's not a better time to pull this because of the uncertainty with the tax credit.
So yeah, I would compare this. Oh, go ahead. You go first.
I was going to say that I don't think the tax credit really matters that much because when Tesla had lost their ability to have the tax credit, they were still outselling everybody. But go ahead.
Oh, I was speaking from a customer pricing standpoint.
Oh, right.
It's just the way to think.
On the Edmunds Award, you reach a point where you can no longer deny. If I say, look, guys, I want you to give out a best channel on YouTube award, and I need you to give it to me, you'd say, oh my God, I can put you in the finalists, but of all channels, Brian, that's ridiculous. You don't have the production values. Among analysts, maybe I could win that category, but that's what we would see is they could say that, well, you and I would say that the Model 3 was already the best. They would say, well, it's among the best. Okay, fair enough. But you reach a point where it becomes undeniable and pretending otherwise doesn't work. It just damages your credibility. It's like the stock. People say, well, I think it's overhyped. I think that people just don't like Tesla. And I say, it doesn't matter what you think. The fundamentals will catch up. And when they do, it doesn't matter how much you dislike somebody or something. The money is the money, and it just carries the whole thing. And so that's what I'm seeing with these awards and recognition as well, because this is not the first huge award that the refreshed Model 3 has won, and it's not going to be the last. It'll only be unseated by the Model Y.
And a shout out to Gary for calling out the fact that Edmunds is also kissing the ring too, as you said.
I mean, maybe, but it is a good car. It is a good car. It's not kissing up to recognize that this car is every bit as good as the BMW 3 Series, maybe better for half the money. That's hard to deny.
Especially the performance, yeah.
What is you guys' thoughts on this? I just saw this comment. Loss of the tax credit will just hasten the death of legacy hybrids. Do you agree, or what are your thoughts on that?
There's very few hybrids that are on the list getting the credit, so I don't see it having that impact. I think that will increase the lifespan and survivability and viability of the hybrids. And it will impact EV adoption across all brands. Tesla would be, in my opinion, the least impacted, but they would still have an impact. I mean, if the Model Y refresh is available in a 3-row configuration, I may be able to buy one this year. If the tax credit is gone, I definitely cannot. That's only one data point, but I know I'm not alone.
I'll tell you this, and I'll use an analogy from when I used to be a manager at GameStop. There's always something for everyone. And when I worked at GameStop, a new console comes out, right? And so you get all these people that there's a small amount of people that want the latest and greatest, and they're going to do whatever they can to get that new product. But then you have a very huge amount of people that are like, finally, I can buy the old one at a cheaper price. And I think that's what you're going to see with like hybrids and all that type of thing. This, like, the used car market is going to probably explode because you're going to have so many vehicles that are going to be so cheap, and it's undeniable that there might look like a boom for the auto industry on those vehicles, and people might think, oh man, we should have just kept doing that. It's like, no, that's just dying. Those people can just afford it now. Like, do not go down that road. That is a dead end. And that happens. This happens all the time. You see it with like budget phones and things like that. This is just the way it works. There's a huge amount of people who are financially, constrained, that look for these opportunities. And I think that's what you're going to have with the hybrids and all that type of stuff. It just creates opportunities for those people to get in, and those people are going to realize that they should have got on all electric after a while, and then next couple of years they're going to be able to get a Model 3 for like $5,000, $10,000 or whatever have you at that time.
Cybertruck breathing Cybertruck. So as we know, the boring tunnel for where Cybertrucks are being made literally has its own tunnel for when it comes out through production, which is pretty beast. Super cool design. I actually would love to just I know Joe is out there shooting these photos and stuff, but it's pretty bad just to see, Tesla is always doing cool things, right? They're building, they work really hard, but they take those moments to make like iconic, Easter eggs and other things like this. So super cool.
This is really cool. They didn't even have to do this. They could just made the tunnel and just left it at that. But to go ahead and make a Cybertruck breathe in Cybertruck is pretty awesome. So, and to make it stainless steel, they didn't have to do that either. And the light bar actually works; it lights up. these are all things they did not have to do. Yeah, the light bar lights up. It's pretty crazy. But yeah, they didn't have to do any of that. They just did. Awesome.
All right, I'll pass this one to you, Joe. And then maybe this can be the last slide before we do the cyber beat.
All right, Unplugged Performance. I thought this was pretty awesome. So Unplugged Performance has a division called Upfit. Upfit is what you do to police vehicles to make them worthy for the task that they have to do. So Unplugged Performance had this video, and in the video, it was apparent that a lot of these people that came, a lot of these officers, their mindset was not for EVs. But then after, like, as we say all the time, butts and seats, after they drove the vehicles and after they did a few of these pursuits, and the video is pretty awesome, you could see them talking about, like, they were like, man, at 6 a.m. when I was headed here, I did not like EVs, but now I'm thinking, holy cow, I need to get an EV. And it was just like that across the board. Like, a lot of these guys are just like changing their tune about what they feel about EVs. And I think a lot more of this needs to happen. Like, even in the cities that I'm dealing with, like, we're working negotiations right now with a few of our municipalities trying to get them to have like Model Ys and things like that for their patrol vehicles, and we're on conversations with Upfit, and it's just like they know their stuff, and they know this isn't like something that is just a pie in the sky, something that they just added on. Like, this is a whole division catered to officers and catered to keep an officer safe and everything, and making this vehicle, proven to them that this is a vehicle they can use in the field. And for them to be able to experience that was, I think, was very telling. It was pretty cool. The video was pretty awesome.
So last year and the year before, Unplugged Performance joined us at the X Takeover. I hope they're there again this year. I hope all of you are there. So you can come check it out and see it for yourself. This video that they put out, I was watching it on mute, and then I had to unmute it because at one point they were doing like a drag race between the to show the speed between the Ford Explorer and the Plaid. And I thought, that's the stupidest video I've ever seen. They should at least start at the same time. So I unmuted and played. No, they did start at the same time. The Explorer looks like it's standing still compared to and the police officers are understandably impressed with the performance. They can hear their surroundings, which for safety reasons is important. And unlike an idling V8 that sits there all day just burning dyno juice, it can actually run all the power needs you have in the vehicle all day while drawing 1-2% of the battery. It's a better system.
Agreed. All right, let's get to the Tesla beat real fast. Just we're going to hit the panelists with some quick, hopefully gotchas, but we'll see. All right, we'll kick this one to Hans. Cybercab steering wheel.
I thought it was never going to happen.
Do you think it is one?
I think it's possible. So I was actually thinking about this the other day when they're, especially these units that they're taking around and into showrooms, like you don't have any autonomous driving data for how do you drive around inside this building. And so for certain types of applications, especially right now, and especially for early testing, it would make sense that they would have some ability to take over and manually control the vehicles. But I still remain skeptical that any consumer vehicles will ever be sold with that look like the Cybercab that are in fact equipped with the steering wheel.
Agreed.
All right, Brian, Starlink direct from satellite to cell.
It is, first of all, it's impossible. We already talked about this. SpaceX, so much of what they do is impossible. Last year, let's see, when was it? In May, I had a chance to talk with a former T-Mobile engineering employee. And I said, he was unaware of this. He'd left T-Mobile a few years back. And I said, direct to cell, how can it happen? And he said, I said, 5G doesn't reach that far, does it? And he said, not through air. The atmosphere thins out real quick. There are no obstacles between you and the sky. And if we're just trying to do, especially just like data, you don't need much bandwidth connection to actually make a text message go through. So this is for search and rescue, for emergency services. How many people every year die because they are out of cell phone range? If you could just send, help me, and it sends your GPS coordinates, it's going to save so many lives. And the functionalities already, the satellites already exist. It's just there. We just do it, not because it's profitable, but because it's the right thing to do, but it can be both.
Nice. He's got it. He's got it. There he is. Welcome back.
Hydrogen trucks for cell, Joe.
Yeah, Sawyer put this out this morning. Nikola Motors looks like they're exploring options, including selling parts of its business or the entire company as it struggles with a cash crunch. This is a shock. I mean, holy cow, right? Who would have? No, I'm kidding.
Who indeed?
I do feel bad for the employees that work there that had no idea about.
So I do not, because I think this gives them an opportunity to go for a company that actually is going to value them and be able to stick around. Like, you have some really good engineers, And I've talked with a few of them. We had an event here in Sacramento, and they brought out the hydrogen truck, and they have an all electric Nikola as well. And it was a whole all semis and truck expo thing that we were doing. And I talked to some of these engineers, and holy cow, man, these guys are really smart, really smart guys. And I think if they can get to a company that values them and is gonna stick around, then I think this just opens up the floodgates for like the Volvos and freaking Tesla Semi, and I mean, on all these places that are like, because that market is huge and it's just only going to grow. And so those guys have places to go. I think
I'm gonna just say real quick, we need to get to the other side of the ravine, and this road, the hydrogen road, is a dead end. What we're talking about here is making that dead end a little bit longer. It's still a dead end. I don't care how much money you spend making it go farther down the road. We're not going to get there from here.
So given we're at the top of the hour, just want to do a quick plug. If you are free, July 25th and 26th, probably the coolest experience if you're a Tesla, SpaceX, or, even Neuralink. Just, it's a great way to potentially even meet people that from X and other places, hear great speakers. We're still trying to finalize some keynote speakers. And then we're going to be working on the panels and stuff like that. So we haven't released any of that information or really worked on that just because of what we're trying to do. But it will be a great event. And what's been really encouraging for me in creating this with not only Kelvin and several other people in California, like as far as the origin stories, but ultimately, like, there's so many events happening now. And it's because of our events in California. Like, I can't tell you, I think it was the Cyber Fest that happened in Florida. Drake told me specifically, he was inspired by the X takeover. There's Chattanooga happening, I think
Michigan.
at the end of March, Michigan. But so many of these events are happening because of, the work that we had put into the community, in the past 4 or 5 years, as far as these big events. So, this is the golden egg, I would say, but, definitely try to come out to it, support the other events. But xtakeover.com, we would love to see you there. Last plug, if you're looking for some cool stickers or any cool swag, Sticker Mule, go to TeslaSiliconValley.com. There's some cool swag there. Check that out. But hopefully we can see you next week or at the X Takeover happening on July 26th. Please, again, as always, hit the like button, subscribe, but most importantly, give a follow to all of the people on this panel as they're spending their early Friday mornings with us. Not necessarily for Hans. He's got the benefit of living in the future. So they're tagged on X and also too on YouTube. Their channels are tagged. So please give them a follow. Also, feel free to use their referral codes other than Brian's, because he's got a lot. But either way, yeah, we thank you again for supporting this podcast, and we will see you guys next week. All right, good stuff.